Hundreds of victims of the infected blood scandal are questioning why they have not received the same coverage.
Thousands of people died after being given contaminated blood products in what is seen as one of the biggest failures in the history of the NHS. Nigel Hamilton was infected with hepatitis C after receiving contaminated blood transfusion, and Nigel joins us now.
Nigel, I bet you wish that ITV would make a drama about your scandal because it took that to galvanise the nation and galvanise the government. Now, your horrific saga has been going on now, I think, for dating back almost to the 1970s. I think I'm right in saying 2,400 people have died. More than 100,000 have been infected. We're talking about AIDS, we're talking about, or HIV, we're talking about hepatitis C, transfusions that killed people, and still you're waiting for justice. Are the authorities waiting for you all to die so they don't have to pay you anything?
Good afternoon, firstly, and thank you for having me on the show. It's a very interesting situation. I would say to you that the Post Office has been going on in its inquiry for the past year. Our inquiry started 7 years ago. It's been identified through research with the inquiry that over 3,200 people have already died. The situation that we're in is lagging on, but there are two separate types of injustice. One of them is clearly a terrible legal injustice, and it's attracted the anger and the imagination of the public through this TV programme in its episodes. The other has been a long and drawn out process, bringing together millions of documents, hundreds of hours of hearings and interviews, and drawing together a process which clarifies why this happened, that it should never happen again, and that a number of people are continuing to die as a result of this. The current rate is apparently four people over a period of a week. Now, I lost my twin brother on Christmas Day, and our death certificate quite clearly indicated that, in part, it was a result of the contaminated blood that he received.
Well, that's all. I mean, tell us your story, Nigel. You received a transfusion, and so did your twin brother?
Yeah, my identical twin brother and I received a number of transfusions for different purposes. It was contaminated factor 8, which was the factor 8 deficiency that we had, which enabled us not to control, or did not enable us to control, the bleeding. And therefore, the medical units decided it was necessary to do that because of certain episodes we were under. I went for an eye straightening operation after an accident whenever I was about 4. And mine was a cosmetic improvement. I contracted hepatitis C in 1975. 1976, I apologize. That led to a process of cirrhosis, encephalopathy, developing into cancer, and I had to go to King's College for a liver transplant. I then subsequently have had 4 brain aneurysms, 3 tumours, one of which was treated 2 years ago, and also now diabetes 1, all as a result of the contamination. So I'm telling my story. I'm a survivor, and people know I am, and I'm championing my cause, our cause, for those victims who aren't. But look, the public have captured this. It is a story in relation to the Post Office, which has attracted a lot of anger and a lot of imagination. Our story is not quite the same. We've attracted a lot of support and encouragement from documentaries listing and identifying victims' experiences. If I could get, or victims could get, the opportunity to do something that was imaginative and focused and kept the attention, we would certainly go for it. Our situation is going to bring us justice, but we're waiting far too long. My brother and others who I've fought along and campaigned with have suffered the consequences as a result and are no longer with us. I would like to see the government react effectively and immediately to the situation that was presented to them by Sir Brian Langstaff, the inquiry chair. That was last April. He brought together, and the previous April, he brought together a number of packages which were distinct inside inquiry legislation that they could be enacted straight away. The government had the opportunity to deal with compensation and didn't deal with the compensation as held back
Nigel, sorry to interrupt, but speaking about the compensation, so interim payments of £100,000 have been paid out to about 4,000 victims and bereaved family members. Does that seem like an adequate amount of money to you, £100,000? After you contracted you had the contaminated blood when you were 16, and from what you've just shared with us, to me that seems like a drop in the ocean, £100,000 for everything that you've been through throughout your life and suffered.
It won't be 100,000. I can tell you, because there are 300 litigants, of which I'm one. And if the government don't do what Sir Robert Francis suggested they did, which was be generous, understand with a responsibility lay, and make sure that victims are recompensed for the problems that they have encountered.
Nigel, sorry to interrupt, Nigel. Let me ask you this. Have you personally received any compensation at all so far?
I've received the interim payment of £100,000. Yes, I have. And that's a matter of public record for all those who are victims. We have a number of family members who've received, and that would be widows and recognised partners. And they've received that as well. But there are a considerable number of siblings and parents who haven't received anything. And the recommendations were made in April, and the government haven't yet dealt with that. But that's interim payment. The government have said to us back in July that whenever the key architects of the government, Richie Sunak, the Chancellor, etc., and the Paymaster were interviewed at the public inquiry, they made it clear that nothing would be processed until the full report came out. That contradicts both the legislation that the judge has been able to put in place and the reality, because he was able to give a complete package of compensation required actions. They have held back on that. They could have gone ahead and worked on it. If they have done work, they haven't shared that with us. So we're very cynical of this government and their approach. Now, I will be fair to them. They have been working since Mrs. May. One of the last actions that Boris Johnson did was he signed the £100,000 payment to individuals, but the subsequent payment of £100,000 to siblings, that's children and parents, has not been provided.
I'll tell you what, Nigel. Since you have suffered since the age of 4, and your poor brother, so sorry for your loss, died on Christmas Day, you guys, you and all the other victims of this, alive or dead, deserve one hell of a lot more than £100,000. Yeah. We're going to stay on this story, and we wish you all the best. Watch your phone. It'll be TalkTV. So we're going to stick with this story, and thank you so much for joining us.